Morning, everyone. Bright and early here at 9:30.
9:30
right?
Eastern Time.
Eastern Time a.m. I'm Andy.
And I'm Alex.
And we're going to be giving you guys a Periscope tour today of some iSchool classes. More importantly, IST 195, which is taught by an awesome professor, Jeff Rubin.
Jeff Rubin is personally one of my favorite professors in the iSchool. Not only is he a professor, but he's also the owner of Sidearm Sports, which is a collegiate athletic website company run out of directly out of the iSchool. It's one of the really cool success stories because Jeff took two of his passions, technology and sports, and brought them together and made a really successful company out of it. So like Andy said, today we're going to be bringing you to IST 195, which is the first class that you'll potentially take in the iSchool, and it gives you a really nice overview of everything the technology industry has to offer, all the way from RFID technology to databases to Wi-Fi to security to infographics. You name it, it gives you a really good overview of everything that you can do with tech.
So the coolest part about it is, since it gives you a giant overview, you can help kind of figure out what your passion is in the iSchool. So for me, my freshman year, when I took IST 195, I loved the week we talked about web design and web development. So I furthered that by continuing on with my concentration in the iSchool and taking some more advanced HTML and CSS classes. So, go for it.
No, go for it.
Okay.
Let's go into the class.
Let's go in, we'll check it out. Enough about us. We'll start hearing about Jeff Rubin's experience. So this week we're going to be talking about databases, so we'll see how that goes.
And so you guys should be all set on that. Here comes our live Periscope tour.
Hey everyone.
Hey.
Look at this lively. They all showed up at 9:30.
All right, so everyone want to wave to our live Periscope. Admissions, perfect. Hello, everybody. How many iSchool folks in the room? How many freshmen? Sophomores? Juniors? Seniors? How many people aren't here? Awesome, nice. All right, so we're going to jump right back in then, and we'll get to announcements later. We'll jump right back into kind of what we were talking about on Monday, databases. And as I mentioned on Monday, I think we got through 2 slides. We spent a lot of time talking about relationships between tables and databases. And so just a quick review of where we were is we spent the time in the database. Remember, we set up both our student table. All right, so we had 3 students in there: Jeff Rubin, Jennifer Rubin, Nick Rogers. Russ, I think you were in there, who's the lead of you. And we talked about how no 2 records can be alike. And so how do we make sure no 2 records are alike? We use a what? Nick? Primary key. All right, so we use the primary key to make sure no 2 records are alike in the same table. And in this case, our primary key was the student ID, right, auto-incremented by 1. I think one of you had said it could have been an SUID. That would have worked as well. What is the foreign key then? So let's come back over to you. So what's the foreign key then behind Russ?
The oldest comment between 2 pages of the database.
Yeah, so between 2 tables, right? So when we went in here and we set up this linkage, we said the primary key, which was the student SUID, became the foreign key of the address table, right? So we just added it in, and then that way we've got that linkage. We don't end up with phantom data, and life is pretty good. So are there any questions on that before we continue? All right, so we understand databases. All right, some of these are just redundant, right? So you could have examples of primary keys. You could have a product number, right? Student ID number, that's what you talked about, right? So if a product number is always unique, you're never going to reuse the same number. That's a good one to have. A customer number, same thing. It doesn't have to be an integer. It could be, JHR1. It could be initials and a number, whatever you want to do. Just something that keeps that uniqueness, but you've got to have it in every table. All right. So, couple more definitions here. One is when we're talking about ERDs, or entity relationship diagrams. All right, so you got to know that term. Entity relationship diagrams, or ERDs. If you take a database class, You iSchool students, you'll all take IST 359, and you will spend a semester building ERD diagrams. And it's going to be a lot more complex than the 2 tables I had between students and addresses. But really, an ERD is what I did. It's just the logical relationship between many entities. Entity is just another fancy word for a table. Right? You often think of as an entity, I think I mentioned this on Monday, as a noun, right? A person, place, or thing. So in this case, student was an entity, address is an entity. In sidearm, we could have our schedules as an entity, our rosters as an entity, our players, our coaches, our stories, all these different tables where we're storing information. And then the attributes are just the fields, right? So that is, if we're talking rosters, we're talking, player first name, player last name, height, weight, etc. If we're talking music, we might have, album name, genre, release date, artist, etc. Right? So it's just the field name. So it's the same stuff we talked about Monday, but just throwing in more fancy terminology for it. Instead of just calling it a table or a field, we're calling it entities and attributes. And then the relationship is what we did on Monday. All right. So, we're going to say goodbye to our
Jeff, thank you
Periscope
for
tour.
talking to us. Guys, thank you for having us here. And hope you guys enjoy the rest of the class, yeah?
Good. You're all famous now.
Database.
All right. The relational database.
We'll just get out of here before we interrupt our class again. So that was a little bit of taste, or a little bit of a class that you'll take in the iSchool. So that is one of our bigger classes, but like we said, that's going to be the first one you take and gives you a nice, awesome overview of all the different things that the iSchool has to offer.
So week to week, you're going to be talking about something like that where it's database. It's a little bit more technical, but other weeks you might be talking about project management, which is actually one of my passions and concentrations in the iSchool. So the one nice thing about the iSchool is you can really define your own path, and if you want to be super technical and go into database management, you can do that, but you also don't have to. So IST 195 with Jeff Rubin really gives you all the tools you need to make that informed decision.
All right, guys, that's it for us this week. Tune in again on Monday morning for another taste of Jeff Rubin's class and more Periscope tours to come in the future. Have a great day.
Thanks for coming.